Going on to the political part of the podcast, you have Vivek Ramaswamy. His little tweet about his Ukraine interview is going viral. Now, this is in terms of the statistics. This was, and we'll actually compare a couple stats here. Within 30 minutes, again, within 30 minutes, which I was going to say, I know public schools are all-time low for their test scores and knowledge. That's a half hour, which there are 24 hours in a day. You're welcome. But nevertheless, in the first 30 minutes, his post got 57,600 views and 1,031 likes, which is quite a lot of likes, but not the great ratio, 1.79% like ratio. That's a lot of hits in a short amount of time. And now, so that was within 30 minutes, 18 hours after, it's got 1.4 million views and 15.2 thousand likes. Now we'll pull out the good old math calculator app on the computer here, and we'll find quickly that is equal to, is it still about 1? Yeah, actually no. So the like ratio went down a little bit. So that's about 1% like ratio now. So it's about a minute long, but in terms of him having a unique perspective on the Ukraine, it's actually a fascinating debate within the Republican Party, which is, I would say, more diverse in opinion than the Democrat Party, which is kind of their strength on the Democrat side of politics, is they're much more uniform when they're voting on bills or discussing these things, which some would say is a weakness because, I mean, the best ideals is when you have debate, discussion, and philosophies, they brew to the surface. But in terms of voting success and metrics and politics, their side is, we could see from the past couple of years, has been more effective. So this looks like he was on MSNBC. Let me see here.
Yeah, with due respect, my concern is that our steps and NATO's steps right now are marching us closer to world war by driving Russia further into China's hands at a time when we have no visibility into what Russia's red lines are, and further at a moment when Russia has a larger nuclear stockpile and super EMP capabilities and hypersonic missile capabilities ahead of that of the U.S.
That's another thing a lot of people kind of forget about. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty. Like after the USSR fell, a lot of weapons moved around, and I can't help but think not all of them are accounted for. So Lord knows who has those old Soviet nukes as well as the new technologies, but they have a very large, vast amount of geographic area. That's another thing to remember is they also have a lot of heavy-duty firepower. Now, granted, perhaps it is similar to the political phenomenon where you have North Korea, where they also have a lot of firepower, but they dare not use it because of mutually assured destruction. They know if they did, pretty much the whole world would go after them. So many are speculating that's part of the reason Russia hasn't escalated the use of force. But we'll get back to him.
And so what I've said is I would end that war, but on terms that end the Russia-China partnership. That is also how we deter Xi Jinping from going after Taiwan. Because right now, Xi Jinping's bet is that the U.S. will not want to go for two different allied nuclear superpowers at the same time. But
U.S. past couple of years has had a track record that shows we will not stand with our allies as well. The world is pretty much on its own, which is a frightening thing to think about. I would think it'd be much more prudent to defend the largest semiconductor manufacturer on the planet, where pretty much everything Americans buy these days has semiconductors as a component inside of it, if not a subcomponent, the main component. But apparently that's lost on some politicians' ears.
But if Russia is no longer in China's camp, then Xi Jinping is going to have to think twice before going after Taiwan. And I will repeat, I'm the only presidential candidate who has affirmatively said we will defend Taiwan because we have greater national interests there than we do in Ukraine. And I do not think that this war advances American interests. We should focus on the real enemy, that is communist China. And that's how I orient my foreign policy.
So to actually create the Ukraine war is a really controversial thing to say these days, because pretty much everyone, politically speaking, it seems to be everyone on the left wants to invest more. So we've already given them over $100 billion in cash as well as physical weapons. But I think it's going to be up to $2 billion by the end of 2023. And it's fascinating to see the comments are a little bit more, I'd say maybe 70-30% in terms of supporting Vivek and versus who wants to support it, continue to support the war. But it's fascinating to see very few candidates, politically speaking, are actually speaking out against that initiative or this war, whatever you want to call it, where the U.S. is continuing to fund them pretty much without any oversight to what used to be one of the most corrupt nations on the planet. Well, it used to be publicly reported as one of the most corrupt countries on the planet. It's no longer reported. There are allegations of funds already going missing, but yeah, at the end of the day, it will come to an end, the conflict. The only question is how. And I would hope more people would want to come to a peaceful agreement. Right now, it's kind of seeing the antithesis where countries are almost egging each other on. Countries and third parties who aren't directly, fighting on the ground, they're all egging the two nations to continue the fight, which I don't see how is beneficial because, unfortunately, of course, it's going to lead to more death and turmoil. But we shall see. Hopefully, perhaps I'm being foolishly optimistic, but I do hope the conflict ends and the casualties are minimized. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to take the time to like, subscribe, and comment. Each one of those things greatly helps the channel grow and develop. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of this month, so I really think we can do it together. Also, the comments really help to build the channel, the feedback is greatly appreciated. Try to make things show better and better. Also, and lastly, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.